Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and get started. I realize I was a little late, so I apologize. Whenever I was discussing this bill with the Speaker Pro Tem, she actually came up with a good idea, and you will actually find it beginning on lines 518. It's the second to the last page. And what it does is it rolls over. The bill becomes effective provided that the funds are necessary and appropriated. And this just rolls it from year to year. So it becomes effective January 1, provided that funds necessary for the implementation is there in 24-25 fiscal year. And then if the determination of whether specific lines are contained shall be made by the co-chairpersons of the implementation committee provided for in the code section. If they are not contained in the General Appropriation Act for 24-25, then parts 2 and 3 of this act shall not become effective and shall be deferred until specific line item appropriation for implementation of such parts are contained in a General Appropriations Act. If such funding is provided in a subsequent General Appropriations Act and the co-chairpersons of the Implementation Committee provided for in Code Section 151142 certify that such funding exists, such parts shall become effective January 1 of such fiscal year. However, if such funding is not made available by 2030, then such part shall be repealed by operation of law on January 1, 2030. So basically, it just allows for, we don't have to pass this every year if it's not fully funded, which we hope it will be, and we're optimistic that it will be. But provided that it is not, then it just allows this bill to roll over until such time as it is funded. If it's not funded after 5 years, then it just goes away. But we're not back every year trying to pass this particular piece of legislation. So that's, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. 12.
No questions, Madam Chair. Just letting you know that was one of the concerns from my juvenile court judge in Rockdale County, and I'm glad that you got that straightened out. I'm be happy to support the bill.
Okay, thank you. Number 8.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, is the supplemental budget also the General Appropriations Act, or is that titled differently? The reason I ask that is if we come in and appropriate funds in the supplemental, do we have to wait until the following January for it to become effective? Because the supplemental usually passes late January or February.
Well, it would be appropriated whenever it would be appropriated. It would be either the little budget and the big budget are both considered General Appropriations Act.
Okay, so I guess that answers my
so question. It would just depend on when it was appropriated. Yes, sir.
So follow-up question. Thank you. So if we appropriated on January 30th of that year, it says it would become January 1st of such fiscal year. Does that mean it would be retroactive, or does that mean I guess that means it would be retroactive, and is that what we're looking for? Because we probably wouldn't pass a supplemental to, like I said, January 30th or February 15th. Is this going to be a retroactive effectiveness?
I would say that because of some of the problems with implementation and some of the ramp up that needs to occur before actual implementation, that we're going to I anticipate needing, 3 or 4 months, 5 months, as long as really we can get to build up, numbers at DJJ and that sort of thing. So to allow for the influx of those 17-year-olds into our juvenile system. So does anybody else have any questions? Seeing none, what is the will of the committee?
Move to pass.
Several motions do pass. Is there a second? There's a second. Any opposed? I'm sorry. Do any wish to speak in opposition to the bill? Is there anybody from the audience who would like to speak for or against the bill? Mike, you want to talk? I got your latest letter today. Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you for allowing us to speak again. I just want to renew the sheriff's opposition to this bill. We just do not feel that whatever the implementation committee ends up doing.
I understand you don't like the name.
Correct. So I guess the question that the association has, would you be open to considering any of the suggestions that we made?
I would be happy to discuss them with you. And I'm kind of sad that I keep getting these letters and not really sit down face-to-face meeting. I mean, y'all know where I am. And I think you get more done. It's a lot more productive whenever we go that route rather than, the route of we don't like this, here's a letter, we've sent around, and we've worked on 2 or 3 days.
Concerns.
And
I
that
think
sort of
that
thing.
we could work toward a compromise.
But, and I've pledged to you that, I fully anticipate this to be fully funded by the state, with no cost to the sheriff's office, with no cost to the local juvenile court judges, or the juvenile courts, the local juvenile courts.
Madam Chair, is there any way that we could add language to the bill that would ensure that funding gets down to the local level?
This is our last time. This is our last meeting. This is our last opportunity to get this rolling, for the next, to get it out before crossover. See, if y'all had met with me yesterday or even this morning.
Well, the sheriffs are strongly opposed. I mean, they have some fundamental concerns.
Well, and I don't think, I don't know that we're ever going to get over those the quote unquote fundamental concerns of 17-year-olds are evil, or, they're going to be a bad influence on 16-year-olds, although putting 17-year-olds with adult offenders in adult jails isn't, that's not corrupting 17-year-olds who get arrested for open container. How that's not happening, I don't know. How that's not corrupting them, I'm at a bit of a loss. So, I mean, I'm willing to continue to work with you as the bill works its way through the process, if it continues to work its way through the process. Obviously, if y'all are able to stall it out somewhere and it dies, then, it's just dead.
We just want the committee to understand that DJJ does not currently have the staffing to accommodate this new age group. They don't.
And I understand that.
And I just don't know how anything from the implementation committee is going to change that fact.
Well, the implementation committee is there to make sure that the infrastructure that is needed is available to the Department of Juvenile Justice, and to make sure that not only is their needs known and studied and made plans for, but also that there is a cost associated with that will be appropriated through the general appropriations bill at the state level. I don't know how I can make it more plain than that.
Well, the sheriffs remain opposed.
Mm-hmm. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Number 17.
I'm borrowing it for now, if that's all right. Chair, just, we had a conversation with one of the probate judges after, and they actually indicated to us with the language that was included that would exclude those, I'll call them aggressive offenders, if you will, that those are already within the system that I think he's speaking to. And so I respect my sheriff, and I respect, the folks that have that concern, but I also think that working with those two agencies to determine the number of actual folks that would be included in that, I don't think it's as large. And I think the sheriffs would do well to advise their sheriffs on the number of actual people that would fall into that category. Just an opinion statement. In my district, it's not going to be a very large number. So,
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think once we get through all the exclusions, it's not going to be nearly as large as folks think. 15.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I know I was asking when we had the hearing before quite a few questions, but I was just curious, did we get a copy of the letter? I know that he made reference to suggestions, but I don't know what those are.
It was directed to me, but I'm happy to disseminate copies to the members of the committee. I'll do that tomorrow.
And or if he's willing to maybe let us explain what some of the changes are that he's requesting, I'd be fine with that as well. I just don't know what they are, but I do know that my sheriff has a serious concern and has been on my phone regularly about this.
Yeah. What is his concern?
Well, the same, that there's a financial concern. There's a concern about the number of these kids moving down. But that's what I was curious. I was curious to what they listed.
Mm-hmm. Mike, you want to come up? Do you have a copy of the letter? Do you have a copy of the letter?
I do not, and I apologize, Madam Chair. I did not realize that this bill was going to be reheard in committee this afternoon. I was actually in a completely different committee, had to rush down here. I think there is concern about the terminology that's used, the implementation committee. I think the sheriffs are recommending that that language be changed to feasibility committee, so the assumption is not being made that this is being implemented regardless. So we would like to see that change. I do know that we would like to see the implementation date pushed out an additional year. So instead of January 1st of 2024, maybe pushing that out an additional year.
I think it's July 1, 2024. Or is it 2025? 2025.
Okay. Yeah, so just whatever's in
So you would want to make it 2026,
correct.
2.5 years from now.
An additional year to whatever's listed in the bill.
Okay.
I think there were a couple of other points I'm at a loss right now.
The implementation committee, transportation costs, which I don't know how else to assure y'all that that's going to be paid for by the state. I don't know how else to do that. I mean, I think it says it pretty clearly in the bill. I don't know how else to say that. That all costs will be borne by the state. And you wanted to change the name of the implementation committee. Yep. Study committee or something like that. And I think, is that about it? Oh. If you'll email it to me, I can email it to the committee members. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. Again, so I guess my further would be, are they comfortable? I know that you've done an incredible job of adding much of what we originally talked about, including with my sheriff. You have made those corrections in this bill. Would they be comfortable with us, as you suggested as well, but passing this through committee? And we certainly have time to address those. Those are somewhat minor issues so far that he has spoken of. So at the appropriate motion, I mean, at appropriate time, I would make a motion. Or we already have done that, haven't we not? Okay. That's fine. I just want to make that point.
And
I don't comfortable with that.
I don't think they would be comfortable with that, and I think they're still going to work towards ending the bill here. That's certainly what I judging from the letter to Richard Smith.
Madam Chair, I just texted.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Number 12.
Sorry, Madam Chair, are you contemplating making some of these changes now before we vote? We have a motion on the floor already. That he's suggesting that you take it out another year.
Okay, their first one is transported to DJJ RYDCs, which that's already addressed in the bill. DJJ lacking staff, that's already addressed. Suggest the name of the implementation committee be changed to study committee or something similar. Because we're studying the implementation of the bill, what that would mean. And through appropriations, since the cost of this far-reaching policy does not rest solely with the courts and DJJ. And I've told you several times that the cost of the bill is the cost of the bill, regardless of who incurs that cost, and that cost will be borne wholly by the state. So I don't know how more explicit I can be.
Madam Chair, I worked for the state for 29 years, so I know how things get implemented. And it's not always the most efficient process.
Well, that's why we have the committee to try to make that the most efficient way possible and the most easiest facilitation of the policy that we can find. So, and they want to delay it until 2026. So those are their,
Madam Chair, if I may, also adding two members to the committee,
okay, that's not in this letter.
chiefs of police and someone from the Georgia Municipal Association.
Okay, that's not in here. So, number 16.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is directed to our guest. I wanted to ask, what would be gained by adding 2.5 years to this bill? What's your pitch for why this would be important for us to add another year for implementation?
So, like I said previously, DJJ doesn't have the staff to oversee the additional juveniles that will be coming to the facilities. So they're going to have to ramp up on bed space and ramp up on staffing. And again, I just don't know what's going to come out of the implementation committee that's going to change the staffing constraints and the limitations that they have today.
Okay. Madam Chair, do you mind if I follow up?
Sure.
All right. Are you speaking on behalf of the Sheriff's Association or DJJ?
Yeah, I was a little frustrated at the last committee meeting that we had 3 members from DJJ here in the room that did not speak. And we get our information through sources at DJJ. So we have been given information about what their constraints and limitations are.
So they're not supplying the committee information?
They chose not to speak for whatever reason. I'm not making any implications, but I was a little frustrated that they did not speak.
That's a little disconcerting. Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Would you like for me to speak? Sure. We don't mean to sit around and talk bad about you. It's not our intent.
Madam Chair and committee members, we met with Chairman Ballinger and discussed with her, what we realized are the challenges, and we are appreciative of the implementation committee, and we believe that with the people that are on that, and we are represented on that we could come up with a plan, and that with the time and the funding, that it could be addressed. But we are neutral, but we're supportive of the plan as you presented it. Is
Yes.
that helpful?
Okay, thank you. All right. Mike, all I can do is I will continue to work with you through the process. But this is my last committee meeting before crossover. So today is kind of a do or die. So I'm going to, there has been a motion to pass. There have been several seconds. I'll probably restart that process just because I forgot who did what. And, oh, never mind. My good analyst has been keeping track of it for me. So we have a motion to pass. We have a second. We have had some, I think, robust discussion. And committee members, if any of your local folks reach out to you about this bill, I'm happy to talk with them about any specifics, any concern, any numbers, anything like that they want to talk about. I'm happy to do. So there is a motion to pass. There is a second. We've already had robust discussion. All those in favor of the motion to pass HB 462 LC 280594S, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. We are adjourned.